Hello, Designstrators. This is Mary Afolabi, and you're listening to Designstration podcast with Ufot Ubon. Design plus illustration equals Designstration. Good work takes time. Great work takes even more time. If you really want to do great work, it's grueling from this side of the world because every factor is militating against you. So you are going to be pushing yourself in ways that is unprecedented. And that sounds weird, but that's how you do great work. If you promise your client 2 weeks and you tell your client that, in 2 weeks this thing will be ready, let's say it's a logo or something, whatever it is, and you did not work on it until the last minute, I promise you will still pay that time. You will pay. And you will pay it in a way that will put you under so much pressure. People will say things like, I love working under pressure, but you will hate it. If you do it over and over again, you start to hate your work. Right? Let me tell you why you will pay it. Okay, let me explain it like this.
Designstration. Hello everyone, you're welcome to another episode on Designstration podcast, and this very episode is special. As you already know, this month of March 2025 is specifically dedicated to women. It's Women's Month, right? We use this month of March to celebrate the women in our lives, our friends, family, loved ones, colleague, workers, schoolmates, classmates, and all the likes of that. And we've been wanting to, go all out for the women in tech, women who has inspired us in our creative part. And this month, we have an exceptional designer. And I'm going to give a bit of background story to this particular guest before we, give her the opportunity to give us from her wealth of knowledge. And I'm just going to read off something, because every designer at some point in their career has imagined what it would look like to work on project, right? Different kind of project, and not just the soft-handed project or the side project or fun project that we work on, but we're talking about a project that can shape brands on a global scale. This has always been dreams and imaginations that most designers and creative are looking forward to. And this kind of project that make headlines, project that defines industries, project that leave a lasting impact on lives of people. What's the source behind leading those kind of projects? What does it take? What's the aura behind it? And the high stakes design initiative, those kind of projects that top headlines, that lead headlines, what does it take to do those kind of work, right? We've been searching for the women in tech in our space that we know have handled those kind of projects. And on this podcast today, we're so privileged to have an incredible, talented designer to lead this conversation. And it's no other person than the incredible Mary Afolabi. Mary, it's a pleasure to have you on the podcast today.
It's a huge pleasure to be here with you. Thank you. Thank you for having me. How's it going for you?
Yeah, it's going good. It's going good. Happy Women's Month,
Awesome.
By the way. Happy Women's Month.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I felt so honored this month that I'm hoping that I can return your energy with International Men's Day. I don't know that you guys have a month, do you?
I don't think we do. I know we only have day. I don't think we have month.
Wow.
Yeah. But it's all good.
Even these days, I think it's like a lot of struggle.
Yeah.
I hope I can maintain the same energy. I hope so.
That's great. Now, in this conversation, we're going to sit down with Mary Afolabi to discuss about design on a global and broader scale. But I'm going to give you a brief introduction about the incredible guest we have today. Mary Afolabi currently is a design director at FourthCanvas, and she's had decades of long experience in this part of her career. She has led brands through transformative design processes, right? I've been privileged to converse with some of the designers who has worked hand in hand with her, and we're talking about women like Bolutife, right? These are incredible personnel that I've been privileged to converse with, and I've seen their works. And as exquisite as Bolutife's work is, I can only imagine what it feels like working with Mary Afolabi. And it's just one beautiful thing to sit with people who has worked with great brands. We're talking about brands like Nigerian Breweries. We're talking about brands like Ventures Platforms, and they've pushed design, led design conversations, both theoretically and practically in that light. And it's just mind blowing, and it's just a privilege to be able to have her on the podcast today to share some of our wealth of knowledge with us as designers. So I'm really hopeful that you've grabbed your pen and your notepad to document on this particular process, because there's quite a lot of insight to talk about in this episode. So let's get started. A lot of persons know you specifically on Twitter as the Color Fairy. At least that's what I know you as majorly. May the Color Fairy. And let's start this conversation with your journey into your design space, right? You've been in the design space for over a decade. And if we rewind back to the beginning, right? Did you always know that you will, follow the path of being a designer? Did you always know it's going to be design, or were there ups and downs and, it somehow just clicked? But were you always certain that you would eventually be a designer?
So the answer is like yes and no in a way. So early days, so I'm talking about being a teenager. I had an idea that I was going to be in the creative space, but I had no idea what that was going to look like. Right? I just always knew that that was where I was going to be. Uh,
Mm.
the courses that I had taken in secondary school didn't exactly look like it, but I knew that this was the direction I was going to. I had no idea again. I had no idea what I was going to be doing in this space, but I knew where I was going to be. Um, then so that's like the no side of the yes or no answer. Or sorry, the yes part. Then the no side, on the no side, it would be that when I really started design, it really wasn't like I went or I decided initially that, oh, so this is what people call graphic design. This is what I'm going to
Mhm.
do for 10 years and all of that. It just really started like me waiting for admission and not getting in and getting busy with trying out some art projects and all of that. And then after a while I was preparing for JAMB, I think, I had been teaching in a primary school. I was a teacher. And my dad just told me that after this your JAMB lesson, you're not going back to that school. You're going to this person. So this person has become my goddad now. He
Mm.
was a designer that was a photographer that uh, also did some web design and web management for people, right? It was literally, and it could paint too, right? So you could
Mm.
call him the full stack artist in that
Yeah.
sense. But there was no word for all of the things I could do. So my dad was just like, we would start going to Ayo's office every day. I just know that you love creating stuff and that's where you should be. So he used to be the one designing some cartoons and the magazine for my church. Uh, and so I knew this person really well. Uh, but that was the start of my journey. It was that I had no idea what that was going to look like, but I knew where I was going to be. When I started going to his office, it just, the way most people started to learn design now, you just see the
Mhm.
laptop, the desktop at the office that
Yeah.
you are learning stuff at, the Corel draw in front of you, and then maybe they
Yeah.
give you a design to replicate. and all of that. And that was really it. That was how I started. He gave me one design. The design looked so simple. And I'm like, this is too simple. You are trying me. By the way, I've never designed this before. And he was just like, take this, redesign this. He showed me how to do a couple of things on Corel. And he was just like, knock yourself out. So I think he was trying to seek out the creative person in me by giving me just the seeds that I needed. And he just left me to it. So I kept struggling week in, week out, trying to find a way to redesign the very simple flyer, right?
Yeah.
And that was it. I was just hooked from there. I was hooked from there. So yeah, I had no idea that I was going to be doing this for long. And it was just a stopgap, like, oh, you're not in school yet and you like creative stuff, just go to this office and have fun there. And then one thing led to another. And I'm happy today.
Yeah.
So
That's
yeah.
that's fascinating. That's fascinating. Quite a number of persons that I have communicated with, especially those that I know that their works just oozes greatness. Right. They somehow just had this unbridled curiosity, and they just curiosity somehow led
Mm.
them to that part, and just trying to create things led them into design. I'm talking about some of the persons who are
Mm.
marvelously good at their work, and hearing your story
Mm.
in that light also just, I think there's something about someone who, nah, I didn't really want it to be a designer, but I was just trying to create things, and boom, here it is now. There's something about that kind of story that just resonates with me a lot.
Mm.
That's fascinating. That's fascinating. And now,
Thank you.
I have, yeah, I've read your bio, and I learned that you finished from OAU, the popular OAU, the elite OAU, Obafemi Awolowo University, and you studied fine and applied arts, which is quite beautiful. Fine and applied arts from OAU. Now you're
Thank you.
design director, yeah, at FourthCanvas. So, looking back, from you know from where you've been, your story, what were some of those big lessons that you would say, this is one major lesson that I've learned in the early days in my career that has shaped my career today?
So uh like I mentioned earlier in the first question, I was talking about how I even ventured into design. So I was literally learning design from a full stack creating person, right? And that was where my lesson started actually. So something happened that was crazy early days. So when you are just starting to learn design and you kind of want to test everything, want to try everything out. So
Yeah,
if a
yeah.
new customer comes in and then they're like, can you do this? You feel like, what do you mean, can you do this? I know how to do this. I'm going to do this.
Hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
So I was still under 20 and quite unexposed with like a lot of things or to a lot of things. Right. Even with the little things that I'd learned. But I remember this lesson very, very vividly, right? So this guy walks into our office somewhere in Akobo, in Ibadan, right? Cornet,
Okay.
above
Yeah.
Cornet Cafe and all of that. And he walks in with like another lady and one guy. And then he gave me a piece of paper. They were like, so there is a problem that we're trying to solve. This result that we have from our uni. Again, I had not even gotten into uni. So the implication of some things were not really fully, it wasn't like obvious to me in that sense. So they
Hmm.
said, so
Yeah.
there's this results that we have here. Um, we just want to change one thing to one thing. And then the way they described it was so, it felt like it wasn't a moral issue, right?
Okay.
And
Hmm.
trust me, in my naivety, I'm just like, oh, it's just to change this to this. it wasn't even a name change. It was probably like a mistake in the name that they found a way to explain that we've been trying to reach the maybe it was the provost or something, but we've not been able to get a hold of him, and we need to use this result pretty quickly. We have a deadline or something. I cannot remember the full details, but I know that they had a sense of urgency to the work that they needed to get done. So in my naivety, I'm like, oh yeah, sure, that's not a big deal, you know. Maybe I just started learning Corel Draw. What do you mean? Can I do this? Of course I can.
Yeah.
Of course I can. You're testing
Yeah.
me. So I took this stuff, started to scan it, and then my boss came in, and then he said, "Oh, what's happening here?" And then I tried to explain, and as I tried to explain, I started sounding funny to myself. So that was the first point of what do you call it? I'm like, okay, this sounds off actually. And then he said, "Oh, he told those guys off quickly. Sorry, we don't do that here, right? Um, we do not do that here at all. Um, kindly leave with your documents." He told them all politely, and they were out. And then I was still reeling from the entire experience, and he says, "Mary, the fact that you can do something does not always mean that you have to do it." And then he explained a bit further the implication of some things. Now, when you are like a young designer, ambitious about your skills and you're excited about your new learnings, there is a high chance that some people might want to take advantage of that, right? But it could
True.
end you in prison or something, because when they start to look for who forged the document, they will come to that
Mm.
establishment and they will just pack
Yeah.
everybody into jail, literally.
Mhm.
And
Mm.
you know what's funny about that lesson is that it continues to resonate across everything, not just moral issues. Sometimes it's that you don't necessarily have to take on everything just because you can. It's going to be tough decisions and all of that, but yeah, you will be able to take on everything because you have the ability to. Sometimes you just will not have the bandwidth to take something. Another funny thing to that lesson was that this same issue repeated itself like twice in front of me in my journey, like in fact, in the past 7 years. I've seen mentees go through the same thing where someone comes in and says, "Please just help me change the color of this thing on my ID card," or something like that. An important document that they want to tweak that
Mm.
they do not have the authority to do, right? That is
Yeah.
morally wrong. And I've had to use the same story that, guy, I understand that you can do this thing. It's just a quick Photoshop
Mhm.
rework, maybe brush
Yeah.
work here and there, and you're done.
Mhm.
Actually, some of these things do not take more than 5-10 minutes. With exports, by the way, like scanning, export
Yeah.
everything, 10 minutes. But you do like if you are unaware, you are opening yourself up to a lifetime of just taking everything as it comes without questioning things. Right. So that was a key lesson for me. Another key lesson for me, which I think I have had to uh, take the same lessons over and over again in the course of my years as a designer, is that um your clients, like everybody that you get to interface with, they are humans, and there is a way that um you might get carried away by um maybe the process and all of that, and just start to get so deep that you're not paying attention to the fact that because they are humans, there are some things that are natural for humans to do. So, for instance, the insatiable nature of humans, knowing when to pause and fast track some things, or say, okay, you know what, handling things with diplomacy sometimes, these are things that come with that journey, understanding that people are, I mean, the people that you're working with, they're actually humans. Um,
Yeah.
no matter how high up there they are, or how in quotes inconsequential their feedback
Hmm.
or whatever they say might seem, they are also
Yeah.
human, and and that is a delicate thing to handle. That's really delicate. Then I think one other thing would be how that being visionary is so important. Being visionary is
Mm.
very important. In fact, it's probably one of the biggest skills that you should possess as a designer, for instance, because without that, we do not have the courage to try new things. You do not have the desire um to see. You're stuck in, oh, this is just what someone says that they want. Sometimes you have to be
Yeah.
leading your people or your clients into a zone that everybody's unfamiliar with. So you have to be visionary as a creative or as a designer, right? Um, and
Yeah.
in being visionary, um, you also can. So there are some things that come with that word that I'm trying to define. One of it would be
Okay.
being able to convince people, being able to tell good stories, being able to pull people with you on a journey, even when it doesn't make sense. So I jokingly talk about, at least for most of the clients that I've met in the past few years, I jokingly talk about how that these guys entrust your client entrusts their money and time and everything into your hands. But indeed, what they are coming to is first a blank canvas. When we're starting, we have
Mm.
no idea what we're doing, in the sense that,
Yeah.
yes, we are the professionals, but we do not have a clear direction on what will come out of the process. We just know that at the end of the process, everything will be fixed. It's like
Hmm.
there will be so
Yeah.
much
Yeah.
clarity at the end of it. So it takes you being visionary to be able to do that. It takes you being courageous to be able to do that. So yeah, being visionary and courageous, merging all of that together, then the final thing would be about, is it really the final thing? So there is a thing about being able to define processes, being able to define um your what would work for you, how you would do your work, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
So there is um the generally acceptable process, and there is how it plays out in real life, right? That's one of the lessons that I learned as well. So the theory is quite different from practical. Like when the rubber meets the
Mm.
road, it's really a lot
Yeah.
different. And so being able to manage processes, even when it doesn't make sense, being
Hmm.
able to craft a structure for the work that you're going to have to do is very
Yeah.
important. Um, then let me see. Oh, then this funny lesson that I've learned, that humor is such a huge thing
Mm.
that helps you ease into alignment. So what do I mean by that? Because everyone is human, um,
Yeah.
there is a higher chance of people warming up to you if you're a fun person. It might,
Mm.
I
I
don't mean
see.
that you are fun and laughing so much and
Yeah.
all of
Yeah.
that, or being a clown.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
if you are humorous, or if you know how to pull humor out of situations,
Hmm.
you can help people, or you can help them warm up to you. So I'm talking about even on the team side and on the client side at the same time. It's a human thing. You are dealing with humans. humans are going through a lot of complexities in their lives anyway. And that's why I talk about humans being very delicate.
Delicate, yeah.
And yeah, and being able to break into um or interact with humans, it requires some warmth. It requires that you are um open enough to spot humorous situations. You can even laugh at yourself. All these things are just,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's those are like, I just
That's
give you one small
beautiful.
jar in
That's
humor, but yeah,
beautiful.
that's
That's beautiful.
like me.
That's beautiful. It's pretty amazing about these things in the sense that um we're starting from because we can doesn't mean we should, right? Talk about falsifying
Mm-hmm.
documents and all those
Mm-hmm.
things, and these are really big
Mm-hmm.
lessons. It's a really big lessons because there's a lot of um design exuberance that comes with newbie exuberance, right?
Mm.
Wanting to, yeah, I can do it, and
Yeah,
all those
yeah,
things, and then we get ourselves
yeah.
into problems, and we don't know the consequences of those actions,
Mm.
and
Mm-hmm.
there's this touch of human elements, have humor, right?
Mm.
We're not saying be lousy, but we're
Mm.
saying understand human empathy, understand human relationship. Be smile when
Mm-hmm.
you're on your meeting calls,
Yes.
smile and don't frown.
Right.
But that's beautiful. That's beautiful. That's quite that's quite a beautiful uh experiences that you've had, that are shaping to this
Thank you.
to your career now.
Thank you.
I want us to, yeah, let's jump into the design part of things now. Let's talk about your design part of
Mm.
things, and I want to talk about how you approach your approach to large scale design projects. Your approach to
Mm.
large scale design project. And the first thing I would love for us to talk about is when you're initiating a large scale design project with stakeholders and
Mm.
clients and brands and all these people. How do you balance your creative vision with the practical
Only.
constraints of business objectives? How do you see to it that the vision is balanced with what's practical? You said something earlier on that um, theory that the general way of doing things sometimes will not align to how it's actually going to get done sometimes. So how do you balance that
Mm-hmm.
when you're dealing with stakeholders, especially on large scale design projects?
Mm. So first thing is, I really, really love this question because typically the issue that creative people have is that um they want to be free. You really want to get your freedom and do things the way you think is fitting, eh, you know. But the thing is that you won't always have that. If you're hired as for that, you can have that. But when you start to you start to have the needs to be able to align it with business objectives, then the consequences are higher. You cannot play with some things, right? So the first thing that I think helps is we can start from the human perspective, right? So
Okay.
there is the creating vision that your client comes to you for, or that a
Hmm.
client comes to us for,
Yeah.
right? But then that is supposed to be subject to like their business objectives. So, for instance, it could be like a rebrand, for instance, it could be a campaign, it could be anything. So there is their goal. So you want to start from there first. What are we trying to do here? So when sales team and all of that, when they're on board and they're done with stuff, the creative director is left with the client. Now you are in the ring. You have to find out, outside of what they've told the sales team and everything, what is it that makes this business tick, and what are we looking to
Hmm.
get out of this, right?
Yeah.
So getting to understand the clients, their needs, aligning with them is so important. that would lead me into the next point, which would be aligning, getting alignment early. So I always love to describe this like this, right? On one side, let me put my hand into the plane. On one side
Okay.
is is like the guys with the creative vision. On the other side is you have the guys with the business objectives and everything. Then so what we are trying to look for is like a midpoint,
Yeah.
or like a thing that we get to flow into each other. So we know our stuff well, they know their stuff well, they understand their business, and they know what their users are telling them. They know what their target audiences are saying about what they already do, right? So they know their business more than we do. We know our stuff more than they do.
They do.
And what we
Yeah.
want to do is to find alignment, right? We want to find a way to ensure that at the end of the process, they understand why design is what it is a bit more than they did when we started the project together. And we also understand their business a bit more. So it's almost as if every project requires a new kind of learning. You are learning about the kind of business, you are learning about all of the things that this business is about and what makes it tick that we must translate, right? Because again, we're talking
Yeah.
about like visual design as well as like strategy and all of that, right?
Strategy. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I always think about this journey as a journey of translation. And in translation, you have to first find alignment. You have to first find uh, how are we going to how are we going to there is a goal, but how do we
Yeah.
align to be able to move towards that goal, right? So that I think is very important because it even sets the tone of how feedback is given and all of that, right? The other thing would be um um when you're done like aligning on uh what must be done and what we must learn, then you're also looking at what are the perspectives that we are gaining, what are the limitations that we have. So I love to think about the process like from a playground perspective. People would say things like define your box or something like that. And you are playing within that limit. But I like to use the word playground because in a playground, you can have a sense of more freedom. The only thing is that you're only going to play with the things that the what do they call them now? The play things that are available,
Yeah.
right? So I do not
Yeah.
like to think about it like a box. I love to think about it like when you enter a park, everything is preset. You just have to
Yeah.
find your way around your play within those parameters, right?
Yeah.
So then, keeping just really like being able to define what your playground looks like first, right? Then, ensuring that you are able to. So there is the general typical timeline that you have, and then there is like short bursts that you must have like, let's test this idea. Let's be fast about ideating and everything. Does this work out? How does this fit into um the big vision that we have for this project, right? Then I would say that finding ways to collaborate across the entire team. So for big projects, you always have more than just one team. It's not just design team. So you'd have strategy team, you'd have the design team, you'd probably have some people that their strength is within the teams, they also have like unique strengths as well. Um
Yeah.
and then once in a while you are touching base again with marketing to see that,
Marketing.
oh,
Yeah.
um are we still in line, so there is like a lot of stakeholders that you're like managing at the same time. But the thinking is finding ways to collaborate because everyone's input is important to the success of the project, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, when the stakes are higher, right? Um, it's you are trying to deliver results on like from a top level perspective and all of that. You
Mm-hmm.
literally cannot afford to isolate teams. So uh, the strategy team is in meetings where design team, like the focus is on design team, but they have
Yeah.
to be there because they might just have an idea or a way of rethinking something that will help the design team even be much better. Sometimes,
Yeah.
in fact, the design team has to be on all of the strategy meetings so that they are listening. They are not
Yeah.
participating to comment or anything. Maybe they can have questions, but it's just really to listen. What is the strategy team talking about? What is it that we are finding out about this brand, and how can we find a way to translate? Right? Then you kind of
Mm-hmm.
have what do you call it now? Finding ways to align frequently with the client. So maybe we can think about it from the stakeholder perspective, more like the alignment must continue from beginning to the end. So you must
Okay.
find meeting points every time, frequent meeting points. So on most projects, we have like weekly sessions with the
Mm-hmm.
clients. Sometimes some are like the pre-planned ones. Sometimes we even touch base beyond the pre-planned one. Why?
Mm.
Because there is like a war going on between uh, that creative vision and business objective. Uh,
Yeah.
the client is well aware of the business objective. We are well aware of the business objective as we move to and aware of the creative vision. We want to find
Mm-hmm.
ways to ensure that um, none of this is missing as we are moving. Because when you don't interact a lot with your clients, sometimes you can get lost in your zone, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if
Yeah.
you probably experienced this maybe some time ago where um you have started work on the project and you have all the lofty ideas in your head. By the time we
Mm-hmm.
present it to the client is like, no,
Yeah.
this is not exactly
Yeah.
what we're thinking about. And then you had spent
Yeah.
like 2 weeks or something on the work,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
What that means is that you're going back all over again and
From
ensuring that
scratch.
at least this next time I heard everything
Yeah.
that they meant. Because when clients give you feedback, typically it's not like, oh, I want you to make this logo bigger, and that's what they mean. Sometimes it's like
Mm.
this thing is not as obvious as we want it to be. So it might be the
Yeah.
area around, maybe you kept the logo enshrouded in some things and you're just like, oh, da 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 da. So I'm just using that example, like,
Yeah.
you, it's a balance that you always have to find way around. And the way to
Mm-hmm.
solve it is to find more touch points with your clients. Like, I
Yeah.
think that for me, alignment is probably one of the strongest answer to that battle,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
With alignment, um you are able to quickly, maybe not quickly, but you're able to translate at least clearly what the client
Mm-hmm.
is looking for. So the clients
Yeah.
have how do I put it now? As much as they have the business objective as well, some of the
Mm-hmm.
vision, they do not have the language for it. So it's the job of the creative guys to seek that thing out or then to
Yeah.
pull it out. And you don't pull it out by saying things like, oh, so hi, what do you think?
Mm-hmm.
Do you
Yeah.
like this? It's like a lot of meetings that you'll be pulling things together and getting all of that from. So it's not exactly like a straightforward what do you call it now? Not a straightforward answer in that sense. But
Yeah.
there is a way around. I think the biggest
Mm.
answer would be alignment, touching base
Alignment.
every single, like as often as you can. Yeah.
Mm. That's great. That's so great. That's so great. So great. So Mary, a follow-up question to that would be when you have multiple stakeholders. right? You have multiple stakeholders, you have brand managers, executive, marketing team, and the like of that. Um, how do you ensure that the creative vision stays intact with everyone? Basically, I want for you to share with us walk us through your process of managing multiple stakeholders to ensure that there's a cohesive design outcome for everyone.
Okay, so I I think recently I had a conversation. not- Recently, I had a conversation with some of the uh, core team members at FourthCanvas, and
Hmm.
when we were discussing, one of the things I was talking about was that vision is so important, and communicating vision is so important with the kind of work that we do, right? And I will explain a bit further. Right?
Yeah.
Without the clarity, without clarity, it's tough to move towards an outcome in the first place, right? Because it's
Mm.
almost like you're fighting without sight in that sense. So, and how do you get that? You get that by maybe the summary that I mean, but I would like to go at it from a slightly or explain it a bit differently, like this, right? Our process typically allows us to interface with the clients early on to understand key things at the beginning of the prototype. What would you say that uh, when this is done would be like the most important thing that we would have done right, or more like the success metrics for this project, right? When done on this, what would you want to see at the end of it, right? Defining that
Yeah.
at the beginning is so important because uh that keeps us on in check, and that is like one of like a key north star. So um helps us define even as we are moving through discovery phases where we're getting key you're getting stakeholders perspectives on how they think about the brand, for instance, how they are thinking about the product. We are using the success metrics to like judge a couple of things. It's like a north star in the back of our minds. Like, okay, now we know what we must have at the end of this. But then we're in a journey to discover things about this brand that these guys have always known, but they just did not have the
Hmm.
language for it.
Yeah.
So you are, so one of the things that we're doing is, like I said, defining the success metrics early on. We're also having a way of approaching individuals or getting individuals' perspectives about the vision that they have for the project as well early on. So, uh, when like I was I was saying something about our process early on, the earliest phase of our process, we typically have us do a lot of what we call discovery calls.
Hmm.
Um, and there we hear different stakeholders talk through what they what or how they're thinking about the brand in their hearts, the things that we must not miss out on, right?
Yeah.
Their concerns, their priorities, what's most important for us on this and all of that. These things are important for us to get, and we're taking note of where each individual is tilting towards, so that as we move, we're not just clear about the metrics that we set at the beginning, we're also aligned, or we are clear on how each person is thinking about the metrics, right? And how does this fit into the big dream, the big idea, the big goal that we're looking at, right?
Hmm.
Then when we're judging early on, we are also defining, like for instance,
So.
the strategy. Let's say, let me use the example of design strategy. We're using the design strategy to judge the outcome, the visual outcomes, for instance. So
Okay.
when the visual outcome is not hitting it, we're going back to the strategy, the predefined strategy. Like, is there a problem with this thing that we all agreed on? The thing, the strategic direction, creative direction that we define. Is there a problem there? If there is a problem there, then we fix that from there first and we go back in there. Right? Um
Yeah.
it's like a way of maintaining decorum in some way, right? You don't just go full blast into the creative zone without a direction. The direction is not just also just it's not also just defined, it's defined and agreed upon with the client. So if they have questions and concerns, they are asking them. When we define the direction and all of that, right? Uh, it's not just that the team defines the direction, maybe it's the strategic direction for the design team and all that, and we
Yeah.
just give it to them that this is the direction that we're going in, and that
Yeah.
is it. I will go back to the drawing board. No, actually, we get on like alignment calls to say, this is how we got to this creative direction. This is how we are thinking about this. What are your thoughts? So we're getting points of ensuring that the client is clear. If they have some feedback or comments or questions and all of that, we're answering that. And that kind of helps us when we then go back to our drawing board, because we're drawing from, again, a particular playground, right?
Yeah.
We then have clarity. We've heard some of the things. So we then know where some people's feedback will be coming from by the time they speak.
From.
I try people's uh individual needs in some way.
Yes.
Like, some people will
Yes.
lean more towards a particular direction and all that.
Yes.
When they give their feedback again, we are paying attention to how they think, so that we learn how to, present ideas and all of that. Then when we are working around feedback and all of that, we're going back to the place of strategy. Like, what are we really trying to do here? It's not just that I don't like what this looks like. It's how does this impact the people that must interact with this thing? Um, Earlier today, I was in on a call where we're trying to understand some pictures on a particular website that we're working on. Like, you want this particular feature, right? Um, and we hear you. But what purpose is it serving here? Why must we have it here? Uh, because we're designing this entire thing for impact. There are some things that we expect people to want to do when they come into this space, like this website and all of that. So
Yeah.
why are we bringing more things into this? Is there a reason for that? And then they share how they're thinking about it. Oh, there is this reason and that reason. And then we go back to strategy. What are we really trying to do here? What do we want people to think about? We're always going back to strategy. We're always going back to things. There, within the process, there are like points where we typically have, whether it's feedback from users and all that, and we use that to gauge and to track or to readjust on some things. So, for instance,
Yeah.
uh, we have points where we have research feedback from maybe users or from stakeholders and all of that. And we align with that. And once feedback is coming, and we're like, oh, we talked about this and this and this before. Uh, has something changed? Is there something that we must know? And all of that. So these are like issues. And then maybe the final thing that I would say to that would be, the process is an open process. As much as we have like stop gaps, we have clear timelines, but it's the creative process. The creative process means that you can encounter sudden clarity at some point that will
Yeah. Yeah.
push the project's boundaries beyond, like, it will literally take the project from, you thought that the project was already on 100 and to shoot it up to like a 200 or something, right? That
Yeah.
clarity comes from being inside the process. right? So we consider the process as very open as possible, because we are taking in so much at the same time. We're taking in information from the research that we are doing, the interaction with the clients and everything. Everything is fusing together. So, but they are like boundaries. So
Yeah.
if we're thinking about high impact projects and all of that, that would be that you are managing from a strategic standpoint, keeping in mind all of the boundaries that impact.
Beautiful. Beautiful. It's a hectic work managing and
Mm,
working with multiple stakeholders. It's a lot. It's beautiful to hear your process and how you work with every branch together. That's beautiful.
thank you.
Now, let's talk about the
Really.
project itself, right? Yeah.
Mm,
Let's
okay.
talk about notable project itself and the challenges that you've had. So,
Mm,
what were some of the most challenging aspects of working
mm.
specifically with Nigerian brands? There's quite a lot of back and forth we see specifically on Twitter about Nigerian clients are this, Nigerian client do that. So specifically,
Mm.
what are some challenges? What were some challenging aspects of your experience working with Nigerian brands, and how did you overcome them?
So, I think, thank you for that question. It's such, uh, oh, by the way, it's one of those questions that kind of like puts you on the spot, because suddenly you're like, hey, God, my clients will see this and they'll be like,
yeah.
okay, we hear you. Noted. Ah, ah, ah. But it,
Yeah,
but the truth
yeah.
is that I think that, yes, of course, there are some things that are unique to Nigerian clients, but clients are clients everywhere. But of course, with with
Yeah,
the clients that I've
yeah.
gotten to interact with over the years, I think one of the key things that would be like a challenge is that uh, understanding of what the creative process really looks like. So we've had to, over the years at FourthCanvas, right? End days FourthCanvas, we we would get on maybe calls. In those days, Zoom was not like popular and all of that. We get on calls or get emails, and that would be how we would get to understand brief, right? And then we'd see that um there were some misalignment on the road. So we receive briefs from people via emails, or people who fill some forms and everything. And then that would be all the clarity that we get. And then back and forth emails, all of that. But over the years, we then saw that there was something problematic about that process, right? You cannot get the real time feedback. There is no human, if you cannot feel, you cannot see their faces, you cannot know what they mean with their tone fully. But uh uh over the years, we then saw that it was not helpful, especially when we then had tools like Zoom and all of that. It became important to interface more with clients. So what that meant was that we saw that the more we brought clients into the process, the better the results were. So, of course, that then means that people that do not understand what the creative process looks like or what it means to really be like in the kitchen can mess things up. Let me find a way to explain that. It, it, uh, uh, so, as a creative person, you know that there are some parameters that are setting and all of that. When you are approaching a warm idea, there is how you approach it sensitively, some way. You hold it, you don't go down to it in some way. But when you know that you've gotten the formal idea and all that, you know that this is it. Now, the client cannot, if you show the clients the finished part, so there are two arrows to it. If you show the clients the finished part, then suddenly they don't know what it took you to get there. But there is the problem that where you bring them too close into the kitchen, they can judge things the way it ought not to be judged. Imagine judging the finished work as if it's on the work in progress, as if it's the finished work, right? But the creative person knows that, no, we're not there yet. We just want you to see
Yeah.
how this is done. And so back to the story, right? One of the things that we discovered by the years, if the clients have no idea what to do, they will just think sometimes erroneously that you just came up with something last minute, because that's the real designers, that's the real creative people. Just rush the thing last minute. But maybe you really did it, but the idea is not obvious when you presented it. So uh we then have to start to find a way to balance uh how much of the, like, what part of the kitchen do we bring you into, and uh how do we manage your feedback such that we're taking the key things. So the main problem uh, from that perspective is to be that uh, one, Nigerian clients, uh, it's tough to bring them into the process because uh, because the heat is a lot, and they are not. Imagine this. Maybe let me use this. I watch a lot of cooking shows, right? Imagine that you're a guest, or you just wanted to have some evening of fine dining and all of that, and then suddenly the chef says you want this maybe it's you want our special, right? Come with me to the kitchen, and then you just wanted to have some good time. You did not want to get your hands dirty in that sense. And then this guy is saying, "Oh, this is where we slice this one. This is that." And then the heat from someone spinning one thing is coming at you, blasting into your face, and you're like, "Oh my god, I just want my food." You know. Uh, So it's a tough thing to bring your clients into the space, especially where they have other things that they really know how to do well, and that they would most likely rather be truly. So there is that. Then also um managing so I found something. Education is like a key, because when at the beginning I talked about like alignment, right? Education is always going. So we are getting educated about their business, they are getting educated
Yeah.
about the process and how much uh what it takes for us to develop it. We are co-developing. That's it. Right. So being able to keep up with
Mm.
educating the clients time and taking your lessons is such a huge thing that I'm not sure I know how to describe it. So maybe picture this. The first time the clients interfaces with an agency, they know that you can solve their problem, but they have no clue how you get
Mhm.
the problem solved, right? But what we have discovered at FourthCanvas is that it's not enough to solve
Yes.
the client's problem. Uh, how will the work be sustainable when they are done? The only answer that we found was that they need to keep education going. So it's a bit related to the first point, which is but it's slightly different in that you have to keep education going, and it's not, you cannot get tired. So I'm not sure whether to define what as a Nigerian problem, because I think it's a global thing,
Yes.
right? When you are working, when you're defining stuff that must be sustainable, it's more than just getting this stuff done. It's more than just creating the amazing stuff. You probably, I think that's the biggest trouble here. But I don't think it's even a Nigerian problem. I don't know if you've gone through some case studies before.
Mhm.
So this is personal to me. When I see an amazing case study, I think I've tweeted about it before, that I get obsessed with the other details that will not be in that case study, because it's like a curated thing that
Yeah.
you are getting when you're looking at the case study.
Mm-hmm.
So I know for what agency worked on this thing, uh, what did they say about it? How is the client using the things that I created? Um, um, how is the client using the store? Um, and then is there any other material anywhere? So you could have materials on YouTube, maybe the launch video, the
Okay.
maybe the brags talking about the work that was done and da 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 da. Just how are they using the things that have been created? Right. That problem, being able to create work that can go beyond, oh wow, nice work. Everybody loves it, but to sustainable work, right? That journey, that thing is so important. Like, so being able to figure out
Yeah.
how to get your work to not just impact the maybe the immediate announcement at the end of the project. You know, that typical maybe launch announcement that to be able to get it to be sustainable is so huge. So it means that a lot of education should be happening within the process. Uh, but that is so tough because your
Mm-hmm.
clients don't want to stay in meetings with you. So you have to find your way around educating them because it's not just about you getting the good stuff, but then one, they have to be able to tell the story behind it. It's not about you creating the slides and they know the words offhand. It has to go deep. It has to mean something. They have to see themselves in it. Right. So there
Yeah.
was a particular client that we worked with. And I think one of my proudest moments was that when we had um, the most recent client interaction with that project, with stakeholders from the brand, they were
Yeah.
the person was gladly talking about how uh, they were defending the work that had been done, right? And saying that, no, this does not meet up with the standard that was set by the design agency that worked with us and all that.
Yeah.
But I promise you, it's a lot of work that goes into being able to get that kind of conviction from a client. It's not just you dumping a presentation and just using house high sounding words. It's you literally are educating people. Like if you're a teacher, if you think of yourself as a teacher, that is closer to how you're solving that problem, right? Um, so there is that one. Then I think the final one. So that other part that I was talking about, like education and managing all of that, and also sustainability, you can unpack it for ages. Like you can unpack
Mm-hmm.
it for
True.
ages
True.
because you have seen. I'm sure that you have seen some case studies that blew up over the internet, and then you went to the case study, you read it, you went to the website itself, or try to experience the project, and then you are seeing something different.
Mm-hmm.
It's because
Yeah.
stakeholders are like they're humans too. They're not the platforms. Bureaucratic processes, clinical, like different things that are like behind the scenes, right? But when you get the most important
Mm-hmm.
stakeholders to be in alignment, it becomes easier to get that problem solved,
Yeah.
right? But like I said, you can unpack that one for days, literally. So let me move to another another thing. So the last thing would be managing
Yeah.
creative process
Yeah.
within time. Jesus Christ said,
True.
"But I promise you, this word, I, do you know that can't think up and they will say, I needed this
Mm-hmm.
yesterday. Like
Yeah.
that thing, see, you don't understand the kind of confidence that I have that there are few, I promise you, um there are few clients that will say, oh, take all the time that you need, um, you can do whatever.
Yeah.
I don't think I've met
Yeah.
a lot of people that because I promise you, there's always one internal timeline. It's always one, we have a goal to meet. Da, 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 da. So
Ah,
that is so again, like I said, there are some things that are not just Nigerian province, but here, because of the way
yeah,
things are,
yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah.
amplified. It's like extreme. So it's like wild, right? So how do you solve for time? I promise you, one of the things that I think I, if I do say so myself, that I think I'm most proud of our FourthCanvas or of
Mm-hmm.
FourthCanvas is how that we're always evaluating our processes, right? But this thing is stuck. Every client comes and says, "We needed it yesterday."
Yeah.
I don't I don't know if you've met some people before. They want to engage you or
Mm-hmm.
something, and they tell you that there is a particular date that they are aiming for. But in the process of you negotiating stuff, that time becomes like it's shrunk up, and then you suddenly are wondering, this time that we say that we don't have, how are we going to force the little time that
Yes.
is left into
Into
the
this.
work that
True.
must be done?
Mm-hmm.
Because good work takes time.
Mm-hmm.
Great work takes even more time.
Hmm.
So,
Words.
and I think I tweeted something sometime maybe last week or 2 weeks ago or something. That was like, uh, for you to do great work, you are going to pay in time, actually. So
Hmm.
you will always stay in time within the process. That is great. But you can fast track or reduce drastically that time that you get to pay within the project. Okay, it's not like drastically, but you can reduce that a little, tune it down a bit by spending the time outside of the project to build, to learn, and like to groom yourself. Like it's you are always sure going to pay time. The people that we respect in what they do, all of the
Mm-hmm.
big names, I promise you. Like there was a story about Palasha that like, oh, and I think Picasso also had that kind of story where they said, oh, draw this portrait, and then he sits down, drew the portrait on a tissue paper or something, or a novel paper, and
Yeah.
then he says, and then they say, how are you able to do that in a short time? Like, why is it that expensive? And then he says, well, I spent 50 years of my life learning to draw that fast, right? And that's kind of like what I'm trying to point out.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is almost fast paced, and people want great
Yeah.
work in short time. So that's a major issue that I don't even think is just a Nigerian thing. But how do you solve that? Omo, you pay in time best. You be paying in time before the project is even requiring it. And within the project, see, I this is a thing that is almost dangerous to say, but bro, if you really want to do great work, it's grueling from this side of the world because every factor is militating against you. So you are going to
Hmm.
be pushing yourself in ways that are like that is like unprecedented. And that sounds weird, but that's how you do great work. Uh so you're going to have to pay a time, like whether within the process and outside the process. Um then one other side to that is uh the constraints, the business defined constraints, like the client's defined constraints, kind of constraints that you really have. Sometimes you have to be getting into
Mm-hmm.
negotiations and renegotiations. Like now we have this clarity, we're going on this, da 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 da. We are reevaluating things. This one is tough. Like
Yeah.
it's tough to be having those negotiation conversation about time, but it's kind of
Mm-hmm.
easier when everyone is seeing where the time is going. So, for instance, let me speak about this like outside, like as a designer and not like with the canvas. Imagine this. if you promise your client 2 weeks and you tell your client that, oh, in 2 weeks this thing will be ready, let's say it's a logo or something, whatever it is, and you did not work on it
Mhm.
until the last minute, I promise you will still pay that
Yeah.
time. You will pay. And you will pay it in a way that will put you under so much pressure. People will say things like,
Mm.
oh, I love working under pressure, but you will hate it. If you do it over and over again, you start to hate your work,
Mm. Yeah.
right? Let me tell you why you will pay it. Okay, let me explain it like this. So say you present shiny work to your clients.
Yeah.
Your client has seen your portfolio and they believed in you. That's why they invested the money. I love, love, love the word investment because that's what they believed in your genius and so it invested that money in
Yeah.
the process, right?
Mhm.
When your genius does not turn off the way they know that it can turn off, they will question. In fact, the way they will question it will be so weird that you may feel terrible. But what they are saying to you is that they are not able to articulate it in the way that sound nice for you, nice enough for your sensibilities. But in English, clear English,
Mm.
what they are saying is that sit down and do this work. No. They might so it might sound like, oh, we don't like where it is now. It doesn't feel like where we're going to. It's because you did not sit down and get the work done. Or you did not sit down to get clarity from the beginning. All those behaviors or oh, I'm on it. That's not how great work gets done. If you are saying that you're on it, you better be on it. Because if you are
Mhm.
not on it, you will go back to that process and you will rinse and repeat. The only problem is that it will now be on your own time and it will become an inconvenience. So, um, any days you struggle with it because everything about your creative rebellious spirit, uh, or your rebellious spirit wants freedom in a way that is very convenient. But when you have constraints and all of that, you are going to have to find your own way around it, right? So, um, yeah, I think that just really um addresses one the problems that you typically find that you face with Nigerian clients that I wouldn't think is not.
Mhm.
I don't want to go into others because we just prepare others
Yeah.
like when you have I don't know if you worked on projects that they gave you guidelines and the clients themselves they're saying that you are defining things based on designing things based on guidelines and they're saying that so I don't know, I don't like how this one blah, 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 blah. And I go, but this is what you guys agreed to and they put inside a
Mm.
guideline. What exactly is happening
You
here?
gave. Yeah.
I do not even
Yeah.
want to touch that word because um it it's often
Wow.
a problem of whew, let me not touch it because we just sleep here. It's a problem of education and it's a problem of education and how do I put it now? Education and uh being honest with the process, whether it's from the client's perspective or the agency that defines things and all that. Everybody just saying, okay, you know what? They said it works, let's just go. Let's just go. It's okay, it's okay. It's the clients do not understand what the things that are guideline, what they are doing there. And so when you define things, they're just like, what is this? So in fact, I've interfaced with some clients that when you are doing the audits, they are finding out that, oh, so we had a guideline before, or we never had the guideline, and we always just use this thing, this thing, this thing, this thing. Right? It's because education is not enough. Like we barely educate our clients. I'm not talking about podcasts like you, but I promise you out there, it's very tough to
Mhm.
yeah,
I
it's
understand.
very tough to get your clients to fully understand what you when you're educating them about things. In fact, they probably want to jump out of the meeting because there's a problem that they want to solve on their product or something. And they are not like able to fully listen. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I I don't want to add out.
Wow. That's really that's really a reality of the Nigerian space, and like you rightly said, it's outside just Nigeria, right? So yeah, it's true. It's a big reality that is dawning on many of us and all. And thank you for sharing that. Thank you very much for sharing that. I really appreciate.
Thank you too.
Appreciate.
Thank you.
What inspired you to focus on mentorship, and how has this shaped your career and personal growth?
So I think that first, my journey has been pretty steep in like mentorship, like more like being inspired by people ahead of me. And so it's almost like a way of, I know that the people that have invested in my life and in my journey, I I don't think that I can possibly
Yeah,
pay them back. So, but it would mean so much to them. I'm sure that it does mean so much to them that I'm paying it forward, because I just think about how much I have learned in these past few years, that um what would it be like if someone that's starting or that's getting its design is learning all of the things I've learned in the past 10 plus 15 plus years actually. So right, what would that mean to their journey? How would that affect their growth? Uh it would be being inspired by the people that are been a huge influence in my journey. It would also be from the picture of greatness that I have had. But I think that there is also one side to it, which is that I do want to do more. I have a lot of constraints, right? And I hope to do more. But uh, yeah, it's been that when you look at your journey, I'm sure that you have people who have inspired you, who have sown seeds into your journey, and yeah, that kind of sets me on this journey,
true.
right? There's a picture of greatness that I have in my head. I've had it in a long for a long while, for the longest one since uni, and I think about a cup that is like a sack of cups, and that is being poured into, and then that pours into other cups, and they also spill over, pour into other cups. They do not reduce because they're pouring out or like they're overflowing, but
Mm,
they just keep
yeah,
getting even more.
yeah.
Right? That's how I think about uh greatness, what greatness is, what it means to really be really big. It's that there won't be a point where I get so used to there's something that a dear friend said some years back, and he said that if you are all wrapped up in yourself, you are really a small package. Um I do not know where he got that from,
Mm,
but you there is a thinking, there's a place that comes from. Maybe it's a thing of faith also, because you have to be thinking about replicating things. You are thinking about the things that you find to be missing in a lot of people's journals, and you just want to uh, put the seeds in as many places as you can. So, again, I want to do more, and I hope to do more as the days go by. But yeah, it's really been those pictures in my head.
beautiful, beautiful. I love it when people who inspired me and people who I know are up there that I even look up to give back to the community. It's something I love. It's something I personally love. I love it. Thank you. Thank you for actually
Thank
doing
you.
that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
How do you approach guiding emerging designers in navigating the complexities of the industry? Right? How do you how do you help them find the next step, match the next style, right? Get the next gig? How do you approach that guideline, helping them emerge and help them navigate the whole complexity that surrounds the design industry? Because there's quite a lot, right?
Mm.
And with a lot of, I would call it design exuberance. You want to do this, you want to do that. Like the story you earlier shared, you're right, because you can doesn't mean you have to, but now wanting to falsify documents and all these other things because I just want to do it. So what's your approach to helping designers in that state?
Thank you for that question. So, how I think about designers as, of course, we're all humans first, and everyone is on a different and
Mhm.
unique journey, right? Um, some people like essence, people's essence is what I love to engage first. I want to understand where this person is at first. That's my first approach. Like, where is this person in their journey? And where you are in your journey will show in your work and show in everything you do. So I made a new senior friend, and he said something about Felis. He said that when you engage in this game, when you're playing with someone, the person plays you from where they are, or from who they are in that moment. So the brutal, tough guys will play you the way they approach every game because they really want to mess you up. There are some that want to mess you up. There are some that will respect you as a human to be like, let me play with you from where you are, right? But typically when you get into the game with people, you get to see where they are. And you can't mask that, really. You cannot mask where you are. So I want to know where people are and then see the possibilities. How are they thinking about their journey? So sometimes some people have clarity or some sense of clarity. Sometimes it's, oh, there are some dif- character issues that needs to be solved and all that. What's the best way to get this person into the frame of mind where they can really hear? Because the fact that someone is listening to you, maybe because you're in front of them and they respect you and all that, doesn't mean that they merit what you're saying. Sometimes for some people, you're like repeating and repeating and repeating. Some years back, when I first developed a curriculum for people that were joining FourthCanvas to come learn design, like years back, like 6 years ago or something, I don't know. One of the things that I was trying to see was how can we um so it was just a question of how can we systemize how people there and be able to track how they're moving in their journey and all that. But one of the things that I found is also that because people are in different places, of course, there are the basics that everybody is learn, like all the principles and elements of design, no matter, like, and I mean it on a deeper level, understand some things and all that. But there is also where people are, where they know it by it, but they've not seen it play out over and over again. They've not had to interface with it enough. So there's a lot of patience that is required to kind of help people to see that, oh, there is this gap. You know this thing, but you are not executing as if you know it yet because you don't fully know it yet. So you need to do it over and over again so that you can really, really know this thing. So, but before you can get someone to hear you, sometimes you have to repeat and repeat and repeat. So it's that respect once in a while and enter into some infuriations. Sometimes you're like, I've just telling you this thing, just do what I said and you will get it later. I remember that there was someone that years back, probably like 5 years ish, that I was walking through the curriculum that I defined and all that. And he was still getting gigs and getting paid for his gigs, but he was still under tutelage. And he will bring the projects that he's working on. And I'm like, I want to correct this your work, but I cannot fully get into things. So let's pick few things that you will understand now. then I will tell you to do some things, just do it as I'm telling you to do it, but you will get it later. You cannot understand it now. And the person, some years after, called me back
Yeah.
and said, now he's teaching designers. Now he's a mentor to a lot of people. And he said, Mary, now I get what you mean. Because now I'm teaching people and I'm seeing that the fact that they are saying that they know this thing doesn't mean that it has translated into their hands, into the skills that they now possess and all that.
Yeah.
So, and it was like, okay, best, thank you. But now I see what you meant, right? Now I get it. But when people say that now I get it, sometimes in some years, but like in some years' time, they will come back and say, "Oh, ma, I thought I got it though. I'm getting it again." But that's just part of the thing. So, so there's some humility and patience that is required. There is also some listening, being very so humility to listen and really see where people are, because people show you where they are and see how you can contribute to that journey. And contribution is not always like the same for everybody. There's like everybody has their unique journey, and it's such a huge privilege to be able to contribute to people's journeys at different stages of their lives. So yeah, that's my response to Import's question.
That's great. That's great. That's really great. Let's dive deep into your book, May's book on colors. May's book on colors. What motivated you to write May's book on colors? And what key insight do you hope that your readers get to take away from that book? But before you answer that question, I wanted to just tell us a brief history about the book. Why did you write the book? What inspired you to write the book? What's the story behind the book? Just a brief synopsis about your book.
Okay, so let me share the most sincere story behind the or behind the
Yeah.
scenes. So I was in a moment where there are some moments where you're like, what's the one thing that you can talk about non-stop? I think there are some people that tweet stuff like that, where you're like, what's the one thing that you can talk about non-stop for like 1 hour or something
Yeah.
like that? So typically, instead of answering that or like on a tweet, I internalize it and take some time to think about it. So I had a list of things, but
Hmm.
I looked at it like the one thing that I think I know to a large extent, and I've like put a lot of energy on learning and all of that, and there's like so much to unravel from it that's not a lot of people talk about with the color. I thought about it like, what's the one thing that people do not pay attention to, but that I can talk about or that I can really help demystify. And it was the one thing that kept coming up was color. Um, and here is another side to that backstory, right? I've found over the years that people underestimate how deeply we are touched by color, how it affects a lot of things, a lot of the decisions that we make, how it starts to affect us on the subconscious, right? People underestimate how tough it is to make color decisions, and they just subject themselves to. I mean, there were times that I took polls at some point, like, how do you come to your color decisions? And they're like, oh no, it's just color psychology and all that. But over the years, I found that beyond color psychology, beyond what do you call it, beyond the green is this, yellow is this, da 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 da, there were other factors in the background that could help people demystify making color decisions, right? Over the years, I learned a lot, and I saw that it was beyond just color psychology. It was that you need to understand the industry standards, you need to understand like a whole lot of other things. And it was that there aren't a lot of materials out there talking about these things. Then another side to that was that I had a number of people that asked questions over the years when they got stuck in their projects or something, and then they'd be like, please help me on this. I just want you to get on color for this project. And then I get calls, maybe in the middle of not like middle of the night, but like late at night calls, awkward hour calls, a lot of that. And I'm getting on calls and helping people figure out like directions for color for brands, right? And I can say that in the past 5 years at FourthCanvas, I can even all say that since my journey at FourthCanvas, okay, if I add all of my years at FourthCanvas, I would say maybe like 80% of color decisions on projects I have been actively involved in them. If I pick like from the last 3 years or something, maybe I'll increase it up as like 19%. And it's really been like that. It's been that I've always had to interface with projects and found out how to help solve color problems. And I wanted to help people demystify it, even though nobody talks about how difficult it can be, right? So that was the point of it. What key insights? It would be that uh, color can be a tough nut to crack because of where it starts to affect us from. So think about it like this: when you open your eyes the first thing in the morning, one of the first things that helps you to differentiate or to make sense of your world is light, then color. It's because of light that we can see color, right? When you go into an unusual space, one of the things that helps you make sense of what you're going to like and what you won't like, what you shouldn't touch and all that, is still color. So it affects us from like before you even know that you're making the decision, in your mind, you're making those decisions. So if there is one key insight, it will first be that color, you can understand color a bit more, and uh you can almost always have an answer to how to approach color. So when I wrote the book, it was to first demystify some things and help people that read the book that needed to make color decisions, especially like designers, photographers, and all that. Like get to understand how beyond color psychology, there are other things that affect color decisions that you would be making part time. Um, and then there is the workbook zone that then explains or that helps you probe and ask yourself questions that when you tie these answers together, it kind of gives you an idea what you must do in your project and what the zones that you not have to touch around that. So yeah, it's that you can understand color a bit more, and color should not be something that you are scared of. So color looks like that guy that is like the early part in wheel that nobody wants to talk about until it is time to do with it, and then it chokes you or something. But yeah, you really can understand color a bit more when you look at it from like different perspectives, and you see that it's not just color psychology that helps you make sound decisions. Yeah, that's the answer to question.